Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Thursday evening. It is 9 o'clock. Time to have a live stream and a conversation with Scots Armour. But first, a little music. You enjoy.
We are all the heirs to Scotland, as a nation proudly stand. We will march beneath her banners to protect our ancient land. In the glens and cities, there on every street are the living heroes no army will defeat. Let our flag mean freedom and not a battle drum. To the world we bid a welcome in 1,000 different ways. We will toast to long lost friendships as we build our better days. In the glens and cities, there on every street are the living heroes no army will defeat. Let our flag mean freedom and not a battle drum. We are all the heroes of Scotland. We're a nation hand in hand. We will march beneath her banners to protect our ancient land. In the glens and cities, there on every street are the living heroes no army will defeat. Let our flag mean freedom and not a battle drum.
Good evening, folks. Hope you're all well, comfy, cosy, safe. I'm just going to bring Scots Armour straight on without an introduction because he needs no introduction. Good evening, Scots Armour.
Good evening, John friend. How are you doing?
Not too bad. I think my brain's getting a little scrambled all this chemotherapy. I'm always forgetting something when I'm setting this stuff up. Like I forgot to send you the link.
Listen, do not worry about that. I am perfectly fit and healthy, and I'm forgetting everything, as my good lady reminds me. So we'll just put it down to simply being a man time to time.
Okay, I'll go with that one. So, what's new at your end of the woods? Anything?
Truth be told, not a whole lot. I have been very busy in my personal life with work and different ongoing issues in that because there's been changes to work, which means, I suppose, by large part, which means there's been more of a demand on me. and with everything that's been going on the last while, because I have had a few messages about asking about streams, and I just want to be like honest with the folk, I suppose, that tune in, as well as the community itself. I don't want to do a stream half committed. I want to be like focused and know the material, got a rough idea of what's going on, and be 100% in the space to do it. I don't want to kind of do something half-heartedly, because it's kind of a like, I feel it'd be it wouldn't be natural, and it'd be somewhat disingenuous of me, you know, if people are given the time to come along, have a conversation and listening, and I'm only giving it 50% because of everything that's going on. So until things kind of mellow out a little, then the streams will come back consistently. But out with that, I don't really have a lot to complain about, in all honesty. I'm just plodding along, doing what I can, and you know, just life's very slowly creeping up on me. I've started to get grey hair, which you know, yeah, exactly. So it's like, oh wow, this is a bit of a shock. But I suppose, like all things, is a good wine. It must age and mature eventually.
Absolutely. Not only have I got grey hair, I've got an absence of hair thanks to age and chemical substances that have been added to my body. However, I'm still here, plodding on.
Long may that continue, sir. I think I speak for everyone on that. Long may
Well,
that continue.
thank you. I appreciate that. And I would agree with that. I've got many things that I still want to do. And by the way, folks, I don't know quite yet how to do it, but I have managed to get a video. You'll find it up. It's on the channel. It's the piper who we hired to come and play when we were laying the reeve in the cemetery the other week. So there is a video up there now on the channel with him playing. You can listen to it. Not quite sure how to get it on here. And there is a very short video alongside it somewhere. It's under promotions, whatever that is. And it's me giving a very, very short speech. So you can go and have a listen to that at some point. Out of the two, I'd say the piper's probably the best. So there you go. I finally got it on there, but it's taken a wee while. It's something to do with the sizes of the files, of course, you know. Anyway, my next promotional thing, by the way, Scots Armour, is we have decided that with Christmas coming up and things being so really dire for too many people, we're going to try and raise some money for one of the local food banks and just go give over the cash and let them buy the stuff. So if anyone
Excellent.
to help out in that one, please do it through Buy Me a Coffee. And that's how we're going to do it. Very simply, I'll withdraw the cash on Christmas week and just simply go along and give it to them. Now, the reason I say it with that sort of trust level, if you like, is because this is one of the charities that's organised and run by one of the local churches, so it's safe enough just to hand over cash rather than getting committed, Scots, with me running about trying to figure out what foodstuffs to buy.
No, I think you're doing an absolute smashing cause there, John. It's very noble and decent of you, and I think a lot of people can see the real good intention with that. The good thing with the cash is you can never predict with these food banks what they've got numbers of and what they don't. They always ask for the same items, but the cash will give them, you know, a way of making sure that they get everything in that they're running low on, or get things more distributed effectively, more efficiently to those who maybe need a little bit more demand of each thing. So, thumbs up to you on that one, sir.
Well, that's the way we're looking at it. You know, even if it comes down to, it gives them a few pounds to buy some sweets for the wee ones, if nothing else other than that, rather than, you know, proper food as such. We'll leave it up to them. And the other thing about this, as far as PR's concerned, is this will not be going through the local telegraph, the local paper. Any news of this will be spread by word of mouth by the people involved in doing the charity. And I like that aspect of it. So we have that as well. Now, for everyone else, this is my announcements here, Scots. We are, by the way, folks, getting a second story about the Greenock Blitz. I had the Greenock Telegraph up at the house on Wednesday, photographing photographs and getting details about the relation of mine who died in that Greenock Blitz. And so we should be getting a second article in the local paper on it, possibly next week, I should think, probably next week. And as soon as I get a hold of it, obviously I'll let you see it. So that is another good piece of news for the party and for our cause and our people. So there you go. Oh, somebody bought me a coffee. Oh, somebody bought 2 coffees. Wow, thank you, whoever that was.
Very well done, folks. Very well done.
Well, I like to go through the local paper, Scots, because if we go to the effort, and it's not just me, obviously, as you know, it's the rest of the folk here in the stream and in the party who do all this. But the thing is, it deserves for the wider public to know about it, because I genuinely do think it's important that civilians are remembered as well as those who put on uniforms and died, because the civilians died more accidentally than anything else, and they also left broken families, which tends to be forgotten a little bit, I think. So
yeah, I you know something, I can't add anything to that, John. I think that was quite perfectly put, and I think the way that the times that we're living in nationally and regionally are so disjointed, and yeah, in my opinion, it should be united in all fronts. But a lot of people having local people doing good work kind of still has a good sense of, well, not so much a sense, a good element of faith within people in the community being proactive on helping each other, which raises the spirit. So I think that's perfect, mate.
yeah, that's the way I see it. Exactly that. Because each person that's doing something like that, and I encourage all party members to do something if they can, as well as, you know, supporters of our cause, because each thing that you do, no matter how small it is in your community, adds a sense of community and draws attention to the fact of who's doing the hopefully the good deed, and bringing attention to what is needed to be drawn attention to. That's why I think all of this is important. That's why you hear me talk about it quite a lot. This idea that we just can't sit back and listen to live streams. We have to be actively doing something in our communities, regardless of how small it is or how petty you might think it is you're doing. It's important. People do notice.
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, I don't believe politics is a viable play for the larger scale of things. But what I would say is playing a part within your community, whether that be helping at the local community hub, whether that be donating to the local food bank, whether that be helping out within the local schools to make sure that the kids have access to clubs, etc. Doing these small tokens goes a long way in instilling community spirit. It goes a long way in keeping people tied. It goes a long way in ensuring that the community has its identity and people know the place of trust within those communities, which by large part we don't actually have in government right now. So this is going to go the extra hog, so to speak, the extra mile, and will make a difference for many vulnerable people.
Yeah, that's exactly the point that I like to make, because it is important, as I've said many, many times, that people will say, "Oh, who's that?" And they'll say, "Oh, it's some crowd called the People's Party." "Oh, what are they up to?" "Oh, they're doing this." "Oh, right." And that draws attention to the people involved in whatever it is they're doing. But it's not directly politics, and yet it is politics. It is indirectly politics. But in my view, it's the best kind of politics, because you're not preaching to people about policies. What you're doing is you're saying, we think community is important. We think it's part of what a political party should be about. And this is what we're trying to do here. And that draws attention in the right light to uh, what we're doing. And I think that's why it's important, Scots Armour, that we do these things. And I'm forever encouraging people to do things, no matter how small it is. Yeah. Anyway, enough of that. That's the promotional thing. So, Alison, we've got a second story coming up. Auntie Mary, no doubt, will let us know when it's in the paper, and we'll see how that goes. And we're getting donations for the food bank, which is really great. And I'll let you all know what that ends up uh, nearer the time. So this is all good news, folks. And then, of course, after the new year, I will be actively engaged, God willing, uh, promoting the Inverclyde chess tournament for the same purpose. So, plenty of things on the go, but that's still a way away. So let's get down to some serious discussions here, Scots Armour. Are you at all watching what's happening in the Middle East?
No. Everywhere I go, people are talking about it. I am. What's the best way to put this? See, it's such a strong topic for many, and there's a lot of emotion that goes into this, and has been for the longest time. And the thing that kind of gets me is the ignorance by a lot of people that participate in this, where they pick a side. Now, if I'm being brutally honest with you, John,
Yeah, please do.
at one point I used to sympathise with the Palestinian people, and I don't anymore. Now, when I say that, people will jump irrationally, and there's children, dying, and I sympathise with the children. I don't want any child to die. I'm making that absolutely clear. I do not care for what walk of life them. No child deserves to die in any bombing or shooting. But when you look into the Palestinian situation and you look at the abundance of, if you want to call it, Islamic brothers and sister nations round about them that do absolutely nothing, it raises many questions. And when I started looking at different things, for example, when Palestinian refugees went into Lebanon, I believe, what was it, in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, over those periods of time. They massacred, butchered men, women, and children simply for being Christians in Lebanon. But these people that wave the Palestinian flags, where is your Lebanese flag? Where is your Lebanese flag? I do not see it. When the Palestinians went into Syria, they'd done the exact same playbook. Where is your Syrian flags? You could go on and on and on. The bottom line of it is this: is what's going on in the Middle East, by a large part, is a global deterrent card. And what I mean by that is it's a ploy that will come, and we're even seeing it right now in Scotland, where Hamza Yusuf is calling for Palestinian refugees to come into Scotland. People are saying Palestinian refugees need to go to France, Palestinian refugees need to go here. Why can the Palestinian people not be within their same walk of life in that part of the world? The reason is this, is because they don't really care about the Palestinian people, the Palestinian cause. They care about offloading more people into Europe. And by a large part, Hamas know this, but Hamas is also being funded, trained, and given the groundwork to do by the same people that are funding all these operations to begin with. The Israeli regime, the Israeli state, gets no sympathy from myself because of just how tyrannical and evil they have been from their very inception on the face of this planet. I don't have any backing in anybody. And the more people delve into this and, I suppose, put their emotions into this, the more further away they actually fall from seeing the obvious and most evident play out that's going to happen here. And that's going to be that there's going to be an economic crash, there is going to be a war, and there's going to be mass deployment of refugees into Europe, which would give more justification for other refugees from Africa and the Middle East to pour into Europe, because they'll say that will be a safe zone, because the war will pretty much be compacted over that part of the world. We should have no part in it. We should be pulling out all our foreign relations and all of our foreign aid, and we should be saying, since the Islamic Brotherhood, the Gulf nations, wanted to be pepping themselves up since the civil war in Egypt happened about, 10, 12 years ago, we'll let you people resolve this matter peacefully on your own, and we'll stay the fuck out of it. Sorry for the language, John. And we will let you people put your own people first and come to a peaceful resolution, whilst we work on making sure that our homeless and our health services are getting looked after and run accordingly.
Well, yes, I would agree that we should always put our own people first and foremost, always. Not just especially now, but now and for always. We should be putting our people first. Our biggest problem, as you know, Scots, is how do we achieve that when we don't have any authority or power? That's the biggest problem we have. It's not a lack of desire on our people's part, I don't think. I think our people are quite happy to see these foreigners go. But no doubt you've spent as much time as me or more trying to come up with ways of how do you achieve it, because without political power, I don't see how you achieve anything. This has always been my stumbling block.
Well, by large part, political power is only as much power as you give it. There are plenty of times where politics has been taken aside and people action is taken to the front. The large part with our society and culture that we have adopted in the West over perhaps the last 100 years is that we have went from a neighbourly loving Christian country, putting our fear and our trust in God to look after us, to the government will look after us, to such a degree where people are scared to speak out about crimes and atrocities. And I'll briefly give you an example. Like we're seeing in Ireland earlier on, people are coming out and calling out about the atrocity that happened earlier on. And now you've got Irish people who feel that they need to virtue signal to someone, show kind of some irrationality, that we're not racist and we don't oppose people standing up against the traitors that let these animals in to butcher their own people. It's like words People will label you things in life. It's if you bend the knee, that is on you because you have consented and given power to that. There is no greater power than God. Politics is like being part of a casino. You go in and the devil simply orders everything. There's different temptations and different structures of power. How much power you give them is down to you individually. Now, if the whole country had just summoned, woken up tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, says, bang, that's it, no part of the political system, no part of the monarchy, no part of the EU, no part of NATO, it's game over. We do not consent with that entity. We do not acknowledge that we are doing what we are doing as a people. There would be two things. There would be an international outrage. They would be calling it illegal, uprising. The world would need to get in to intervene. But the bottom line of it is this: there is about 65 to 70 million people up and down the left and breadth of this country. That is a very hot potato that cannot be managed. You put 2, 3, or 4 countries into that boiling pot, that is a whole different entity which the government, the powers that be, cannot respond to because they don't have enough resources, people, and quite frankly, power to contain that.
Yeah. So where do you see our future then, Scots? How do you see us moving forward to improve our situation for our own folk? Do you think what I'm trying to do, in other words, trying to work at the local level, is the answer rather than the national?
You know, I think...
I don't mean to personalise it to me, obviously.
No. I get the sentiment what you're saying. What I would see, I'm not saying you're listening to Scots Armour, this is a playbook on how to do this. This is me giving you my best honest opinion on this, and we're all going to have different opinions. But what we ought to do is collectively, as a people, as brothers and sisters, is to look at the big picture here and see what we've done wrong, how it's went wrong, and halt that immediately. Just stop it, nip it in the bud, and look and going, right, what's the necessities? What do we need as a people? And whether that's using our skills, using our talent, bringing in things into play. For example, like the Woodlanders done with his initiative, putting people into a lot of different pockets to try and bind people in together to give it a bigger network so that we've at least got a safety net of talent and know-how when the shit hits the fan, which, please believe me, people, this is nothing more than a mere picnic that is happening right now. Things are going to get a hell of a lot worse. I don't say that smugly. I don't say that gleefully. I say that sincerely because, trust me when I say, see right now, this not even getting lukewarm. This is just running the bath. And what we need to do right now is to get a grip of ourselves. And the only way to do that is to start connecting, is to start getting back into the community, is to start talking to your neighbour, is to start building those relationships of trust so that when shit hits the fan, we are not isolated amongst people who are going to be trying to pick us off, whether that comes from the government, the illegal UN soldiers that are currently held up in hotels, or quite frankly, those people who are just simply here to take us out because we've been brought in by those organisations that we spoke about earlier on. Getting together with like-minded folk, bringing in skills, bringing in talent, bringing in a new way of life, whether that's changing eating habits, whether that's getting fit, whether that's trying to be intellectually smart, whether that's even knowing your own area to get yourself out of dangerous situations, knowing where's rural, knowing where's the quickest way to get out if shit was to hit the fan, whether that's car, public transport, so on. All these things go a long way in terms of you having a plan B and C, having a community network, and having that safety net to give you and whoever you've got within your home, or your friends, or even your loved ones that maybe live X amount of time away, a fighting chance of actually overseeing this, because make no bones about it, as difficult, as tiring, and as brutal as things are going to be, we will overcome this. We will win at the end of the day. And this isn't me just turning and saying we are going to do this because it's simply me giving you an opinion. I'm telling you we're going to do it because the most important thing that you can do right now, I don't care if you're Baptist, Buddhist, or atheist, or whatever in between, it is written in that book called the Holy Bible, we will win. For as God is with us, who can be against us? And this is what part of the problem is with our ingrained within society. Atheism has came in, Jewish subversion has taken away the absolute identity and historical ancestral roots of us as a people, and we have fallen away from what we have held near and dear in this country. This is why we are in this mess. We need to cut out the poison, get back to the times of old, and start hoping and praying and connecting. And then we will have a light on our country. And when that happens, the goalposts change.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the greatest success in the last couple of 100 years our enemies have had, and it is exactly what you say, is the fact that they have managed to remove God from the centre of everything, to where God is not even considered anymore. And we need to get back to that. We need to get back to the vital, important things in our lives: spirituality, connection with other folk, making those deep connections, and holding on to them, and elaborating on them as well as we can, because otherwise we end up standing alone, and if you stand alone, you'll just get crushed. That's why we need to be together. And the only way I see getting that done is through community action, regardless of how simplistic or small it seems to be to begin with. But we have to start somewhere. And I'm sorry to say, I think the organised church has become a waste of time for us. I think we have to do this without real help from the organised church, because it has been infiltrated and by and large is worthless most of the time.
You know, I'd agree with that, John. I think a lot of people see the sad thing with the church is the church was meant to be a focal point for the community to come
Yeah.
together, to worship, to I suppose heal of any grievances that have happened between the community themselves. The priests, the ministers, the Baptists, they were meant to be leaders, teachers within the community, and have given away to the materials of the world. And when you give away to the materials of the world, you lose part of your soul. It's a spiritual battle. It's not a material battle. It's been a spiritual battle for some time. We have just not, by a large part, I suppose, looked at it for what it obviously is, because, you know, again, there's still elements of the fear propaganda where it's like, oh, the boogeyman, or it's this spooky, inevitable financial crash that just magically happened. Now, all these things are to chip away at you and make you feel like a trapped mouse, so that you kind of are submit and conform to the ways of the world. These priests and ministers and everything else in between have now started painting rainbow flags on their church steps. They have started adopting all this blasphemous filth that shouldn't have no place near a church, never mind inside of it. We have now had people conforming the church into being safe places of worship for people of other religions, which is absolute lunacy. I had a conversation with someone not too many months ago, and they thought it was a great idea. And I asked them why that was, and he says, "Because we all worship the one God." And I says, "That's absolutely falsehood,
That's
and
that.
it should be absolutely condemned when someone says that." And he says, "What do you mean?" And I says, "Well, there's plenty of evidence. You can go, for example, on YouTube and any platform of social media. You will see a Muslim person going into a synagogue, and you will see a Jewish person going into a mosque. And do you know why they can do that? Why? Because they worship the same God, but nor a Jew or a Muslim can go in unless it has been given approval by the Islamic local community to turn around and go and pray within that, because Christianity and the other two religious entities, non-religious entities, because they're not worshipping God, I'm saying that because it's absolute fact, don't worship the same entity. Jesus Christ, God in the flesh, the Word became flesh, in the beginning was the Word was with God, John 1:1. We know this for an absolute fact. The fact that we have priests and ministers now stepping away from that and saying, oh no, everything's universalism, and we all come from, no, we absolutely don't. It's within the Bible. The minute these people sway from the Bible, they have let the veil slip of who they truly are. They are not of Christ. They are not the teachers of Levi. They are of the synagogue of Satan, put in there to brainwash people, to allow crimes and atrocities to happen within those local communities. So you're absolutely correct when you say that these places of worship should not be trusted because, by large part, they do not serve Christ, never mind the general public.
I couldn't agree more. They don't serve us, and nor do they serve Jesus nor God. And that's why we have to stand on our own. We have to say, no, we don't take guidance from that, because there is no guidance to be had. We will be led astray, and are being led astray when you think. And I think of some of the things that I've seen and heard in the last 10 years even. Disgusting. I mean, the whole church, when I say church, I mean Christianity, has been, it would appear to be almost completely taken over by homosexuality. And Jesus made perfectly clear what the position on that subject is. It's not to be tolerated. And yet there they are, promoting it, promoting all sorts of degeneracy on the back of it. And that's why I think the churches as a building is becoming emptier and emptier and emptier because of it, because they have turned their back on Christianity, on the word of Jesus himself. And you know better than I am. You're better versed in this than I am. But if you stick to the words that Jesus said, how can you go wrong? How can they go wrong? Well, they go wrong because they ignore it.
Yeah, this is simply it, John. I mean, they turn around and they try and put man's translation in. It's like they try to remove the word of God and God's law from the courts, and they're trying to put it in with man's law. And this is why right now, like for example, as Mr. DJ Resisting Allies keeps pointing out, with the UN laws that have now been basically in some way pushed into Scots law, it's an absolute foreign entity. It has nowhere near it. Scots law is law specifically to Scots. We get that law from the greater context that was given to us from the Declaration of Arbroath, that was passed down by the absolute power of church at that time, which was the papacy in Rome. It's as simple as that. The minute they start meddling and taking parts of this law and parts of that law, means that whole special uniqueness of everything within our contextual declaration, from the Declaration of Arbroath right down to Scots law, is just altered, which means that it has no place. It cannot function because it's been altered. And the sad thing is here is there is a lot of people, I think, that are too busy trying to be worldly, too busy trying to appease the world, too busy trying to find a way to tolerate the world. And I'm not saying that as in you have to hate everything, but it's like they put up with certain aspects where you should just kind of like, absolutely not, I'm having no part of it, don't want that anywhere near me, keep that over there. Whereas they'll kind of stand by it side to side, but as long as it's not doing them any wrong, when that, you shouldn't be anywhere near these things. It's like the education for children within schools, the sexualised whole context from nursery right up to high school. It shouldn't be in any kid's range at any age, but you'll get some parents in weirdo land, in cuckoo, commie, liberal left Scotland saying, well, from 13 and up, I find that's absolutely appropriate because these are modern times. No, They're perverted times, they're filthy times, they're seedy times, they're absolutely disgusting times, and people like you normalising these absolutely sick atrocities that happen to children up and down the country are part of the problem. But when you stand in the day of judgment, you're going to burn in hell for it. And people do not like that language, but it is simply put because it is true. And people don't want to hear that because then it means that, oh my God, now I have to go and rethink things. People are happy living in denial, but you can't live in denial. You can't have world and God. You can't have part of this and part of that. It's got to be in or out, A or B. It is simple as that. Yes or no. Do you care? Do you want to be upright? Do you want to be decent? Do you want to be moral? Do you want to be ethical? Do you want to be of God? Do you want to do your ancestors proud? Do you want your identity and legacy to remain intact? Yes or no. You can't have bits and parts of it. It is as simple as that. And until people come to that conclusion, we do not need numbers. We do not need you because we have God on our side. We have talent on our side. We have skill on our side. We have determination. We have will and we have power. And again, I keep saying this, we will overcome this, whether it's 10 of us, 100 of us, or 200,000 of us, we will get by. That is what a large part of the people in the West need to wake up and realise the gravity of the situation. Those individuals will not determine our future. It is the people on foot who are upright that will get us through this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because it's quite obvious, is it not, Scots, that the biggest problem is people want to live without consequences. They want to have no responsibility for their action. If their actions are wrong actions, they want to have a clear mandate to be able to do what they think is right, rather than what has been laid down to be right, such as homosexuality. I mean, that is quite straightforward. That is not to be tolerated. Jesus himself said this. There is no ambiguity about it. It's pretty clear and straightforward. So how can you live a life and accept that should be tolerated, unless what you're really saying is, I don't want any consequences for any decisions that I may make. I don't want any consequences for my inaction on these types of subjects, because that's what it comes down to. If you remain silent, you're being inactive. You're, by silence, approving of these things, and that is unacceptable. It's quite clear that it's unacceptable. Jesus said it was unacceptable. You don't need to go any further than that. But this idea, this is what is the attraction. The attraction is, if I say nothing, that means there is no consequences for me. But that's not true. There are consequences whether you say something or not. I'm sure you'll agree with what I'm saying there.
Yeah, I mean, I think a large part of, well, I'll answer this in 2, maybe 3 parts. The first part is whether people turn around and say, yeah, but I mean, I didn't engage. I just kept my mouth shut. I was just, going along with it. But then I suppose a lot of these people that say things like that are quite liberal, and they would have been pushed a couple of years ago by Flint and Floyd's crowd saying your silence is violence, and then they had to again conform and bend the knee and things like that. So they're still playing a part within that system. They're still conforming to the way of the world.
Yeah.
Which, by a large part, it's like Chinese whispers. Somebody does something, by the time it gets to the end and starts to come back around to the original storyteller, it's totally different. And by a large part, that's what these evil corporate prostitutes of the world want. They want people just to be obedient enough, just to put money in the coffers, to push the transactions from A to B at the end of business, but stupid enough to keep their mouth shut and play a good pawn in the system. The second part is this. A lot of people, the excuse for this over exuberant and degenerate behaviour, when you talk to them about matters like we're discussing right now, they'll go, yeah, but God gave me free will. Parents give you free will as well. That is a whole part of learning and growing as an individual. I mean, for example, you got a little one right now, it's time to start teaching them how to do like cereal and toast. Don't put your knife in the toaster. Why not? Because you'll get shocked. You know, you don't
Yeah.
use you don't use free will as an excuse to be an absolute degenerate, arse-shaking halfwit. No, you absolutely do not get away with that. And quite rightly, you will be punished for it. So that notion doesn't fly with me. And a lot of other people will turn around and say, yeah, but like I'm baptized, so I can, I'm part of that whole community. I'll get away with it. I'll go and do a conversion. No. Repentance is absolutely clear. And we just have to look again at John 3:3. Where Jesus turns around and says, verily I say unto thee, except a man be born again, he not can see the kingdom of God. That means you've got to change your ways. That means you've got to be sealed by God. That means that you have to have a change of heart by God. Continue to engage in the ways of the world. Continuing to not change the ways that you're living in sin, whether that's physically playing your part or naively being ignorantly blissful to it, is the same end result. So going back to what you're saying here, whether it's free will, whether it's keeping your mouth shut and still conforming, or whether it's acknowledging but still not changing, these people are still equally guilty.
Yeah. I mean, even the law of man has acknowledged that. If you consider what was said at Nuremberg, simply because you were given an order doesn't mean to say that you had to obey it if it was an immoral order or an illegal one. You had a duty to disobey it, not a duty to go ahead and do what was being asked of you. And that was clearly laid out that it wasn't an acceptable defence, that I was only following orders, I was only not doing anything, I was only keeping silent. That's unacceptable. It was unacceptable as far as Jesus was concerned, and it's unacceptable, obviously, as far as men are concerned, or at least some men. So I don't see any way out of it as far as degeneracy is concerned. You either don't accept it or you do accept it. And if you don't accept it, then I think you're obliged, whenever possible, to say something about it and condemn it whenever you get the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, see, even when you look at, I suppose, like the whole numbers thing, and numbers are only good in certain aspects of life if everyone is upright. And by a large part within society, people who go out in numbers, as we're seeing young men all over Europe attacked in large numbers, it's the coward's way of, giving this psychological boost. But the true warriors of society don't need to be in numbers. And there's a part of the Bible, I think it's maybe to do with Gideon. I can't exactly remember off the top of my head, and I'm sorry for the ignorance here, folks, but there was a great battle, and effectively what God decided to do with this army that was fighting against the heathens was he separated them. He took a large part of an army of 30,000 and broke that down to about 3,000 or 5,000 because he knew the rest of them were cowards, and they won. And you can even take that from that day all the days to this day, whether that's days of the British, that's the Spanish, that's the Portuguese, that be the Germans or whoever, all the most, even the battles against the Islamic holders coming into Europe, the amount of times that us as a people have been totally outnumbered, but still smashed and crushed the enemy continuously, time after time after time after time, is not only a solid historical fact, but more proof of the pudding that people like ourselves who are standing together, shoulder to shoulder, brother to brother, under the grace of God, prepared to die for one another, under that cause, will overcome any enemy that approaches you and yours. We do not need numbers. We just need the right amount of people who are upright, the right amount of people who are skillful, the amount of people who are talented, who can motivate others and pull people out of a dark place. And that is ingrained within every one of us. Some things are a little bit better than others, but you know what? It's it's what's inside that counts the most. And a lot of people say that
Absolutely.
that's a cliche, but it's absolutely inside that absolute sheer willpower. You have that, you're going to uplift and motivate others round about you. I promise you, you absolutely will. And that, by large part, is what they don't have because they can only do what they do in numbers because it is not within them. They do not have the spirit, they do not have the backbone, they just have violence. And see, sometimes with violence, as much it can be a useful tool, it is an absolute downfall because when you come up against someone capable, calculated, with willpower, that's a whole different beast and entity within its own.
Absolutely. I do agree. I certainly do agree. And you see that, as you well know yourself, throughout history, there's plenty of examples where numbers were not important, but character was more important than numbers. And I think I agree with you that that's still true today because most people run away. Most people are cowards. That's why they behave and speak the way they speak because they don't have character. They don't have what it takes to formulate their own ideas based on anything. It's just take somebody else's and use that. Um, and that makes them weak, always makes them weak. Um, but yeah, I don't despair at all, Scots Armour. I don't. I think uh, we've got everything to look forward to. My big complaint, as always, is there's never enough sense of forward motion for me, and I'm not sure how we can inject that sense of forward motion into our people to get things moving forward. I mean, I'd rather we held the initiative rather than wait for something to happen so that we have to react.
I'll give you an example, John, if you don't
Sure.
mind.
No, you carry on.
Um, People can only engage to such a point, and what I'll give you the best example of recent times was the whole cold-related issue that happened a number of years ago, and people in the world all over went into a stage of separation because some group of people believed that it was fake, some group of people believed that this was a bio incident related to start the downfall of overpopulation. Some people had different ideas, but with all said and done, the campaign from the globalists and their absolute corporate whorish minions, when push came to shove, all came out with a super medicine that was going to fix and save the day. Now, that topic itself, still to this very day, is somewhat quite divisive, and a lot of people jumped on the trend wagon very unfortunately, think that they were doing their part, being a good citizen, trying to help protect others, went away, rolled up their sleeves and took the jungle juice, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it took a number of years for many, because there were some people at the very start not complying, not engaging. They were ridiculed, they were mocked, they were calling all sorts of names from conspiracy theory to anti-this, anti-that, to being dangerous to the public. And after a few years, I mean, that was what, about 4 or 5 years ago when you think about it.
Uh-huh.
Well, it's coming up to that point anyway. Now we're seeing large groups of people awakening to what actually happened and what that whole thing entailed there. So I think by a large part, if people were going out and they were bringing the absolute best and the absolute positivity, they were bringing the absolute facts, because that was an important thing that also played a role in that, which people still decided to switch off from. People can only engage to such a point. You can only do so much. It is within a person if they're going to switch on at that moment or not. Some people take longer than others. I've said this on my streams before, that the best thing for folk to do when they come to a realisation is to let that be done organically. Now, flowers will bloom at different stages throughout the spring and the summer because some grow quicker than others. But I do believe that there will be a large part, consensusly, of the conscious within the Western world that will switch on at some point. I can't put a time on that because I don't think it will be done unanimously all at the one point. I think it will grow and come through at different stages.
Yeah. Yes. I think you're right. Because people are different. They are maturing and learning at different rates and absorbing at different rates. I couldn't agree more. You won't get this uniform switch on, switch off thing. Human beings aren't made that way. As Robert here is saying, God gave us an immune system for a good reason. And he's so right.
He's absolutely on the money. Everything in this world. I had this fascinating conversation with somebody in work, and I don't like talking about work because work's been full of events, and that's a whole other story. And believe me, folks, poor DJ's ears. If he's on the chat tonight, it's because I spoke to him the other day about work, and all he could do was piss himself laughing about it. But with these conversations that I've had, I came across one recently with an individual, and he got talking about basically just trying to make a mockery of my beliefs. And I was sitting and I was going, right, okay, and he's going, you've got all these things in nature, and this can do this and this can do that, and you've got these animals and these do this and these do that, going into like lobsters and different types of crabs, cleaning different animals in the ocean, etc., so on and so forth. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, clearly an educated man, because I'm not going to ridicule or mock him and say otherwise. Educated, he knows his stuff. He sounds like he's very much into like nature and the forest and stuff like that. And I asked him, I says, see with your eye, the human brain, and the liver, as just general examples, I went, do you think that they're very special and unique? And he went, well, of course, this does this takes that. You can't replicate the eye because nothing, not even modern science. I mean, they can kind of like do these mimics, but actually to get it to function as it is, they can't do it. To get an eye to be exactly like yours and work the way it does, they can't do it. And I said, yeah, I was like, so what would you put that down to? And he looked at us and he went, what do you mean? I went, so for you to have your eyes, for them to be the way that they work, and the only eyes like that are yours, the same with your fingerprint, and no one else is going to have anything remotely like that, what would you put that down to? And he was like, oh, I would say it was a design. And I looked at him and went, So what I say is, you could turn around and say, for example, every blade of grass, every grain of sand, every tree, every sheep, so on and so forth, was all done within a system that would be suggestive of that these things could function and do a certain job within a certain environment and system that was all built purpose. And it was like, yeah, and that's where kind of like things evolve, and for the Big Bang, I was like, no, you can't do that, because you've just admitted that it was created. It had to be purpose built. So no matter what way you look at it, there has to always be a craftsman, there always has to be a carpenter, there always has to be a master builder. So then the conversation evolved onto, well, we can observe and we can do all these things. And I says, yours is through faith. And I went, yeah, you're absolutely correct, it is. I says, tell me, see when you come in earlier on, I says, and you swiped in, did you know that your swipe-in card was going to work? Aye. How? Because it just is. Because when you do that, you take it on good faith that it's going to work. Aye. I says, and when you come in to sit in your lunch and you sat on that chair, you didn't think the chair was going to collapse? No. How? Because I just know, because you take it on good faith that it's not going to collapse on you. Like when you go on the bus to go home, you know that bus is going to take you to your stop and you're going to get off and get home. Because you take it on good faith. So you practice faith in every day. You just don't acknowledge your faith because you put faith into thinking that everything has to be with God. But although everything comes from God, that's the part that you're not acknowledging. You practice faith every single day in every single decision that you do. Like you're going to get paid on time, that your money's going to be acknowledged to buy your messages. And he looked at us and he went, I really don't know what to say to that. I went, I want you to ponder about it and then we can have another conversation at another time.
Yeah, but that's the point, isn't it? I mean, you can go into any secondary school up and down the land, ask any reasonable pupil to tell you how the human eye works, and they'll tell you. And they can draw you a diagram of it. But what no one can tell you is, why does it work? Nor can we build one.
See, to be honest with you, John, I think a lot of people, when it comes to like me, and I suppose a lot of Christians in the world get the exact same thing. It's like, again, it goes down to that, like you're trying to compound and compact God into a singularity. And if I could understand the sheer vastness and gravity of that, I wouldn't be a mere mortal.
Exactly.
I wouldn't. You can't put God in a test tube and say that's God. We hear all these things for like all these different bodies, whether it be NASA, whether it be all these different scientists that have come out and again educated individuals. I don't believe people are stupid, but I do believe people think a certain narrative. They always try and catch you that we can observe with this, we can observe with that. So can everybody. I could take a newspaper and a couple of sandwiches and sit in George Square on a bench and observe human behaviour. I could observe the birds. I could observe people passing by. I can observe the beautiful buildings and know that within every aspect of that, within the behaviours, there's a reason and a response that comes to that. There's something within them that makes them act like that. That there must have been somebody that came up with a design for that bus. That there was a master building for those buildings that sit around that square. That there was a elegancy that went into creating those pigeons to get them to lift off from the ground and to hover and glide in the air. There is always going to be a master creator, and you can observe that in absolutely everything. You don't need to put anything. You do not need to put hee-haw under a microscope and come up with a multitude of Latin terminologies to try and say to me otherwise.
Agreed, because the diversity alone tells you that there has to be a designer. So apparent, so obvious. I think to deny the designer is in itself a form of madness, because it's there. Otherwise, you would not have what we call beauty, because it's been designed to behave and look and show itself to us in a particular way. And without that planning in advance, there would be no beauty. What you would have is chaos, and we don't have chaos. There is no such a thing as chaos in the world or in the cosmos. What we have is beauty and order. we don't always recognize the order when we see it. So we sometimes mistake it for chaos. But that's never true. It always turns out to be the opposite. There is always order there. And because there is always order there is always beauty there.
Yeah, and there is. It doesn't matter on how great or small it is.
No,
You could go up to the absolute peaks of Ben Nevis. You could go to the salt plains in Bolivia. You could go to the valleys in Wales. There is beauty all around the place, but it's whether you choose to acknowledge it, you choose to, I suppose, observe things unbiasedly and rational. A lot of people say that they can do things, but they can't because, again, as I said to you at the start of the stream with that topic that you brought in, a lot of people, when they get to a certain point, they invest too much emotion in it. Where they go down to that rabbit hole, they can't actually see the larger picture and the situation that's going on around about them. And within our society right now, that's going to catch a lot of people out. But another part here that I suppose that you could take this back to the church, what you were saying earlier on, that totally gets left aside. Like years ago, when you'd attend Sunday school, whether that would be within the Catholic or the Protestant clubs themselves, they would get the young kids in and they would absolutely give them an education on the Bible. They would get into their wee classes, they would go through different books, they would give an education on what that meant, how to interpret that, and how to understand that. Now we've got to such a point in Britain in 2023, we have people of all walks of life, particularly within the Islamic community. And the best way to see this, folks, is if you go down to Speaker's Corner, or you go into I think it's called Socks, SCOTSO, something like that, give or take. You can find them on YouTube. There's Christians who go to this part of London and they engage and have public debates, but the Muslims always come up with the same old tired argument, Abraham bowed down, that must mean that Abraham was a Muslim. Jesus wasn't the son of God, Jesus was a prophet, and Jesus was a Muslim. And it's all these stupid, idiotic, absolute whorish, desperate attempts to try and, get some kind of a win over Christians who, quite frankly, and by myself, and I'm going to be brutally honest, I am not the most intellectually smart Christian in the world, but I do know when there is BS in the room. And what these people do is they prey on Christians who are very well intent in terms of wanting to speak and try and understand, but they're swaying these people because they're not smart enough in their Bible and in their will to recognise what they're doing is they're doing exactly what the snake done to Eve in the garden. They're planting a seed of doubt, and the minute that doubt's in, they've not got enough power within them to boot it out into touch. And then they start listening to these people, and these people start making these terrible accusations. Jesus was a Muslim. Fuck. But again, pardon the language, F off, bull crap. And it's been booted out the pitch countless times. But the point being is you've got these people that are buying into this, whereas you go back 30, 40 years ago, that wouldn't even be approached because as cunning as the Islamist is, they would have known that they would never have been able to slip that and then getting away with it because they would have got a very intellectual conversation, to say the least. But nowadays, because everything is so dumbed down and everything's so fallen away from the actual teachings themselves, they can get away with it because people aren't smart enough because they haven't studied to prove thyself worthy.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is, in my view, Scots, is that for the most part, your average person needs teaching from the pulpit to learn philosophy, and that has been missing for a long time. And because it's not there, people don't have the certainty that they had 100 years ago. and they're left to try and struggle and work out things, even if they can be bothered to try and do it, and most of them can't because it's too much of a struggle. Whereas it's quite obvious to me that somebody like yourself has spent a good deal of your own life working these things out for yourself and coming to conclusions that make sense, and not just to you, but they make sense in relationship and alongside what you know to be true that is written elsewhere. But most people just don't do that, Scots. They just rely on bits and bobs that they pick up from other folk. And this is where as you say, the weakness comes in. They don't have a strong intellectual argument that they can put forward uh, to bat these idiotic ideas away from them.
I think again, this is what I was referring to earlier on in terms of like numbers isn't an essential. It's not important. You just need smart people. You need skillful people. You need talented people. You need people that can motivate people. Like within the Christian brothers and sisters in Britain, for those who are seeking and those who want to know and those who want to learn, we should be and we, when I say we, I mean us collectively as individuals. We all have a duty, no matter how great or small it is. We all have a duty, and that is loving thy neighbours. You love yourself, helping your brothers and sisters. Now, you might not have all the answers, you might not be the most knowledgeable person in the room, but if you absolutely know one thing with absolute certainty when it comes to that book and helping each other out to be more smart, to be more understanding, to be more knowledgeable in the word and then in the practice, you make sure that you let them know that. You make sure that they absolutely take away with that and they fully understand that to the detail. Because that one person then can go away and learn one new thing. Then they can tell that other person two new things, and so on and so forth. No matter how great or small the role is, brothers and sisters, you have a duty, and that small or large part is going to be a game changer on a grander scheme of things. And we totally overlook the little simplicities within life, and the little simplicities in life are the greater things that go on with a whole of a lot of context that changes the goalposts.
Yeah, no, you're right. You can't always go for the big gesture because often you don't have the big gesture yourself to go for it. And even if you do, not everybody else that can appreciate the great gesture. So, yeah, the small things are important because they're easier to fix onto and they're easier to hold on to and they're easier to show others. So I agree with that idea. But it seems to me that this is where a lot of uh, people who are lost, this is why it's happened because the organized church as it once was isn't there anymore to provide that guidance, to, to provide that light and that lead for most people. And I would say that most of the time, people don't have the time or they don't make the time to contemplate anything. It's it's always something on the go. Their life it seems to be on the go all the time, even if it's their mental life, not their physical life. It seems to me that not enough people have the ability to uh, stand and stare and contemplate. They're too busy filling that time up with, by and large, unimportant things.
Yeah, I mean, again, but a lot of people fall into different categories. Some people are stressing if they're going to eat tonight. Some people are stressing if they're going to be able to heat their homes. Some people are stressing if they're going to be able to pay their bills. Some people are just caught up in laziness. And I've been very guilty of falling into all three, more so the latter over certain years of my life. I'm not going to turn here and say, by the way, folks, Scots Armour is perfect. Yous are all nonsensical. Yous need to wake up, because I am equally guilty as the next man. And please believe me, I mean that with absolute almost sincerity. But what I can absolutely promise you is this: I haven't been this way my whole life. I never actually found Christ. I never found God until, later on in life. But I tell you something, see, when I knew, I absolutely knew. There is no ifs, buts in between. I knew. And that was when I start asking myself questions about myself, start asking questions about the things that I have done, start asking myself questions about where I want to go, what I want to do. And, but by large part, this is what's kind of made me look at things objectively and look at politics and look at the UN, look at Big Pharma, look at all these different things. I used to be a conspiracy theorist, and still to this day, I do look at these things. But every single time that you take a conspiracy theory, every single time, no matter how big or small it is, you tie that back, you go right down that rabbit hole, and you get the root where the seed is. There is a Luciferian tie to it, and you can't have one without the other, folks. You absolutely can't have one without the other. So if you are perhaps non-believers, I'm not going to sit here and tell you, you must do this tonight. I'm saying it is written, and it definitely you are told, but how you act is entirely up to yourself, because you're an adult. But what I'm telling you this is, and I'm being absolutely sincere with this, when you look at all these things and you go right down those rabbit holes and you see that Luciferian aspect to it, you need to ask yourself a question. If that is what these people believe in, what is on the other side of that coin? And no matter what way you are in the world, no matter what government structure, no matter what eugenics program or overpopulation, no matter what mRNA code that they're trying to inject into people, every single time it leads to the same thing. So when I looked at this, I was kind of overwhelmed at first, John. I'm going, wow, this is like so clearly obvious.
Yeah.
The way the world is, all these things, it's like, I would imagine this was what it would probably be like if you had like a 2,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, and you build the jigsaw, but you're missing like the last two pieces. And when I got it, I was like, boom, that is it. Not everybody wants to speak about Jesus. Not everybody wants to know about Jesus. Not everybody's interested in God. But he's interested in you. And it's up to you. It is absolutely up to you to make the effort. It's absolutely up to you to know. It's absolutely up to you to build the relationship. Because I tell you this, folks, see when you just find that switch, see when it goes on, it is not coming off, because your whole worldview will change, the way that you start looking at people. And I used to get very angry. Even when I started doing my streams, John, I was getting angry because I wasn't hardened in my discipline. I used to despise these people. No, I pity them. I pity them for being so lost. I pity them for being absolute numpties. I pity them for the atrocities that they're doing. I pity them. It doesn't mean I like them. It doesn't mean I respect them. I pity them because I know where they're going to end up. But they're that hell-bent on their worldly views with an absolute degenerate mission that there is no point of engaging with it. So I'll let them do them, because they're adults. They can make their own choice. But for me, I will happily sit and talk about these things all night, because if one person goes, do you know what? I'm going to go online. I'm going to look at a Bible app. I'm going to maybe ask myself a question, and they get something positive from it. I feel good. No, for me, I feel good that someone's actually got something from it for them, not for myself, genuinely for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I cannot imagine myself being able to look, if I'm sitting around the back of the house, for example, to use something very, very simple, I cannot imagine how that could be without appreciating the wonder of it all when I look at the things that are in the back garden, grass and flowers and all sorts of different things, little animals and insects and all that. How can you view that without being overwhelmed by the not only the majesty of it all, but the wonder of it all? And that's what they miss. And that's sad.
Yeah.
That's sad that they miss all that.
It's the product of a fallen world. The minute a baby is born in the world, that's purity in the world, but the world is already fallen. Now, that doesn't mean that there's no hope for that child. That doesn't mean that there's any hope for any individual, for that matter. What is sad is the minute that you come out the womb, the odds are against you to finding that. Now, I will say this for folk that perhaps aren't Christian, don't believe in God, agnostic, whatever you may be, and I'm using this to try and be as honest as I can be. When you take on the belief, you acknowledge Jesus is Son of God, He is flesh incarnate, the Word became flesh, died for the remission of sins. When you come to this belief and understanding, no mentally, in your heart, you know it. You don't your worldview will change, as I says, but you aren't going to have it easy. Everything's not going to be plain sailing. You're not going to be all tens. Everything's not going to be all roses. You're not going to fall into the Clyde and come out with a salmon. It's just not going to happen. But what you do have is the absolute guarantee of the best defence and the best discipline and the best guidance to get yourself through this journey. We are practically pilgrims. This is a waiting room to what's after in life. And this is the best toolkit for you to deal with everything in this journey. This is your survival kit. This is you with all your list and how to manage life and your affairs. And sometimes you're going to get things right, folks. You're going to get things right and you'll be glad you get it right. But sometimes you're going to get things wrong. And don't hate yourself. Don't beat yourself up too much because we're going to have bad days. The most important thing is you get it right the next day. And that's all can be asked of you. And the more that you put your belief in it, and the more that you cut out the bad habits, and the more that you put your trust in God, the better that you will get. The devil is going to be running about you, sniffing like a bitch in the heat. Please believe me, it will happen. But if the devil's not sniffing about you like a bitch in the heat, please believe me, you're already in the back pocket and you don't realise it yet. So that is the most honest and simplest approach that I can put on that matter to you.
Doesn't get much simpler than that, Scots. It just doesn't.
I try my best, John. I enjoy our conversations because we go right into everything. But I've always maintained throughout the time that I've decided to come on and start speaking is there is a hell of a lot people within our web, a lot of really intelligent, articulate people that do a hell of a job. They absolutely do a hell of a job in informing and educating, and a lot more wiser people than me. I'm just an ordinary guy from an ordinary place that just speaks purely how I speak. I don't try and elaborate. I don't try and use fancy language. I just put myself on the plate, and that's all I can give you because I wouldn't like to think that I'm giving people a false perception when I come on and I have conversations, whether it's with yourself, whether it's with DJ, whether it be with William. What you see is what you get, and that is a God's honest truth. And I would rather people dislike me for me and not agree with me for being me than giving someone the perception of them thinking that I'm something that I'm not. And that's the most important thing in life as well, because you're giving honest accountability to yourself, you're being truthful, you're being honest, but more importantly as well, you're absolutely giving yourself the assertion which people need. So if people turn around and say to you, do you know something? Say that individual, they speak something that I quite recognise, but I don't feel confident in asking any questions round about somebody. So there's been some times where I've come off stream and I've had a message from, we'll just say, Joe Blogs, because I don't want to kind of put any people into a situation where they feel that I'm maybe throwing them under a bus, and they'll ask me a question about something else. They sure, I can answer that as honestly as I know. If there's something there that you don't feel right, please go away. And I say it to everybody, please go away and do your own research. This is the materials that I've had. You can have a look at that. I mean, me and you have had conversations, and I've sent you over some books as well. I'll say you've got to go away and do your own research. And if you want anything else, please come back and ask. If you have questions that I can't answer, I'll go away and do a reading, and I'll come back and say, this is what I've found. Because at the end of the day, us as a people are going to the same destination. We're on the same train, the same destination, so we may as well try and figure this out on the way along.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd rather have it figured out before we get to Paisley Gilbert Street.
100%. But the sad thing is, John, you'd mentioned something about time earlier on. Time is short in life because, you know, every day, again, it's like faith. You take faith that you're going to wake up tomorrow. You take faith that you've got a holiday booked to, I'll say, Barcelona for 3 days next June. You take it in faith that you're going to go and enjoy your holiday. Time is short.
You're going to get there. It's actually going to get.
Exactly. So, like, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, never mind next week. Yep. So the time that we do have, I think it's important that we be very, very conscious of how we use it and how we conduct ourselves within that time, whether that be studying in terms of looking online, reading books, watching documentaries, whether that may be going out to social groups and meeting new people within, as you're saying, you've got your people's party in the local community, you're trying to work out certain issues. Using your time in the best way that you can in terms of giving, spreading positive messages, making an impact, being selfless, and applying yourself to the best possible outlet that you can be is very, very important. Being the best son, being the best father that you can be, being the best co-worker, being the best friend, all these things don't actually take a lot of effort, folks. They really don't. You just apply yourself. You've got bad habits can change. You need to get fit, that's fine. You can change that. But I tell you something, see, the more that you make yourself feel better, see, the more that you apply yourself into the public domain to try and help folk, the bigger the reward. It doesn't matter how many years you put in the gym, the bigger the reward. The more selfless that you are in helping vulnerable people who are going through indecent and degrading situations where they can't put food on the table, the bigger the reward. The more time that you put into the youth to try and keep them on the straight and the narrow, the bigger the reward, because it isn't an individual collective legacy, it's a legacy of Jesus. And I promise you this, the reward spiritually is greater than worldly. No ifs, no buts.
Absolutely. And when I consider what's happened to myself this year, it's a good example of how you could be assured that you're doing something and then suddenly, bang, you're on a different railroad. As I am now, I'm on a slightly different railroad than the one I was on. But certain parts and aspects of that don't change, i.e., I speak the truth as I know it and understand it. And I've always encouraged others to do that. And the reason for it is very simple. If you speak the truth as you know and understand it, then how can you possibly be tripped up? How could you possibly be made to look foolish if you're speaking truth? Well, you can't. And that is important, not necessarily for yourself, but for those who hear what you say. And there are always other people who hear what you say. And that becomes important uh, for them, that they can hear you when you speak and have a confidence that when you speak, they know that you're giving out what you consider to be the truth, uh, as well as you understand it. And all of these aspects of living, no matter how small they are incredibly important. And so much of that's lost, I think, Scots. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, right, is we live in a world where right now you were mentioning about the situation in the Middle East. We've got the ongoing situation between Russia and Ukraine. We've got the Armenians being absolutely genocided by the Azerbaijani government, and not one news outlet in the country's touched it with a barge pole. Because let's get this absolutely correct, Armenia is by large part an overwhelmingly majority Orthodox Christian country.
Yeah.
We've got people right now up and down the country that are in a very number of hot potato situations, considering for how much infrastructure and how many riches these lands that we call Britain possess. They're very poor and shouldn't be poor. There's a lot of turmoil in the world, and people are looking to politicians for the answers. There's a lot of illnesses in the world, and a lot of people are looking to the scientists and the pharmaceutical companies for the answers. And truth is, they're not going to get them. That's not me to turn around and say that every single person within these institutions are corrupt. Because what you've got to remember is if you stand around and say every single person in those institutions are corrupt, I dare say the Houses of Parliament, as much as I think it needs to be blown off the face of the bloody earth for all the crimes that it's committed. There is cleaners that go in and clean that building. I dare say an average cleaner isn't a corrupt individual. But the point that I'm trying to make here, folks, is the people that are leading these institutions are the ones that's corrupting. People are looking at these people for answers, and people are looking at these people for ways out. You're not going to get ways out or answers out of them. What you're going to get is you're going to get trapped. You're going to get caught like a maimed wild animal in a cage. And that's part of the problem, because we have given our rights, our hopes, our beliefs, our riches, our inheritance, our land, our possessions, and everything else in between to these hyenas who do the bidding of, quite frankly, foreign aliens who don't even necessarily reside in this country, but continue to plunder and steal. And then they will take that and they'll put it into the next tax haven, and then the next tax haven, and the next tax haven. And before you know it, we're living in 2023 with not a pot to piss in, health services falling apart, and we're sending billions of pounds to Zelensky to put pregnant women on the front line to fight the Russian government. Yes, pregnant women. So if people have beliefs and trust in these pillars, these people are in for a very slow wake-up call. Now, I don't hate them. I don't begrudge them for it, because, again, as I said earlier on, I also fell into certain traps. Not so many that's blatantly obvious, but I did fall into traps. What I do have hope in is the hope that people change. Because there is one thing that's absolutely clear today. Every single person that's within this chat, every single person that's within, I suppose, I don't want to say our side of the fence as if we're all segregated people. We're alienated by fractions, but everybody, I suppose, that's part of this community was, by a large part, in a different belief set at a different part of time within their life, and they've changed. So there is hope for millions of people to change, and they will change. It just depends, as I said earlier on with the flowers, it just depends how quickly that flower blooms. But nonetheless, change will be happening, and whether people want to be on the right side of that change or the bad side of that change is entirely up to them. but you can take the absolute, I would say, honesty and frankness from it, that when change comes, there isn't going to be a hole like Saddam Hussein apparently found in Iraq. There won't be a hole that these politicians and bankers and corporate businessmen can hide in. The mountains and bunkers aren't going to be a getaway for these folks. No, 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 no. They are foolish, and that's the devil's play. So please take some hope in that accountability will be carried out, justice will be served.
Absolutely. What's your thoughts on this sending women into battle?
Well, I see. Recently, I got something sent to me, and I know, funnily enough, right, the Israeli government is quite typically Israeli, so they use a lot of Slavic women for these photo opportunities, as if we've got these pretty Cinderellas fighting on the battlefront from us, and they're not even Israelis. But it's not the first time I've heard these stories, and I was like, surely not. But no, the Russians had came across this Ukrainian woman in the middle of some forestry, and she's hiding in a ditch with a rifle, and she's literally begging them, please don't kill me. And they recognise it's a female voice, and they stop, and she's like, please don't hit me, I'm pregnant. And the language that the Russian soldier uses is, he says to her, why the fuck are you out here? And instead of just taking her captive, they actually take her to safe ground. Now, I'm not saying you have to be Team Russia or Team Ukraine, but collectively within that situation there, these people are taught shoot to kill at all cost. And there has been enough sensibility within that situation to acknowledge she's no threat. She's actually terrified. She's a terrified puppet that's been put in there that uprooted her, saving that child as well as her life. People might not agree or like the way that I've just put that, but I guarantee this. See that woman, I highly doubt she'll go back to Ukraine. Her child will be safe. Politics and tyrants always sit in an office whilst it's the common man and common woman that unforgivably can be put between Russian and Poles, Germans and Poles, Croats and Serbians and Kosovans, and whatever it may be. They'll have this unforgivable hatred. But one thing that I've been hearing a lot, and I know it's became a popular term, is no more brother wars. The European people collectively don't want violence with one another. Scots and English will always take the piss at each other, as well as the Irish and the Welsh. That's just ingrained within us. We're sick and tired of hearing the same horror stories of how bad we've been to each other. We all know this, but we've got the same common problems. We've got the same common enemies. We don't want brother wars. What we want is collectivised efforts for our own people, for our own lands, to get these people the fuck off, back to where they came from, get the tyrants out, clean house, and start living a proper life. Start having decency and humility within their streets. Start having some form of decorum. Start having what life is meant to be. Everybody wants that. It's the same in the streets in Greece, in Germany, in Finland, right across the whole political, the whole region of Europe. Now, those small acts of kindness, which I spoke about there, and that situation between the Russian soldiers and the Ukrainian soldiers, should absolutely emphasise as well that what's going on between these two nations on the people level, on the field, soldiers, common man, common woman, don't want to be killing each other because they know themselves it is absolute bullshit. But yet again, our cousins of Europe are killing each other senselessly for these bastards that sit up the top that are going to be profiting in all sorts of fashions, left, right and centre, and they're sitting in an office connected to the same tribe of people, doing the bidding of the same tribe of people, and in Zelensky's part, very callously just abolished orthodoxy Christianity, the number one religion in Ukraine. So no matter what way, again, it goes right when you take it down to that rabbit hole, there is always an anti-Christian element there.
Yeah,
Always.
absolutely.
And what this is to do is this is to grind the people down, to break them down mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, to try and detach everyone from their roots, from their origin, from their ancestors, from their heritage, to collectively take out and weed out Christianity from Europe, whilst obviously doing the bidding for the I'll call them the tribe because it's your channel, John, but
Yeah.
nonetheless, no more brother wars, no more sister wars. We need to heal as a people. We need to heal. We need to forgive. We need to grow. We need to rebuild. We need to redevelop. We need to love one another. We need to make sure that our nations are going to be healthy with one another. And ultimately, we need to take a stand. We need to put things right. We need to bring God back into the country. We need to bring God back into the household, bring God back into the schools. And I guarantee this, Europe will heal. Europe will flourish, whether these tyrants like it or not. It's not going to be done on their terms. They think it's going. These things are going to be carried out and fulfilled. They won't be. Us that know, us that actually believe and know mentally and spiritually within, are laughing at them because they're foolish, they're arrogant, they're half-wits. The battle, mate, is being carried out. We will win the war.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. You're absolutely right. What we need, of course, is community at a small scale. Pardon me, on a small scale and on a large scale, and we get that through helping each other, through confidence in God and the help that we get in that direction, because this is and always has been a spiritual battle. Always has been. We need to make sure that more and more people recognize that and understand that it is a spiritual battle that we're involved in here. It plays out on the material, of course it does, because we are part of the material. But essentially, it's a spiritual battle. And there is just no way we could possibly lose when we have God on our side.
No, I absolutely agree with that. And again, the most comforting thing in all of this is honestly the simplicity of it. And people obviously, as you say, people with grand gestures and look for these big things to happen. The most subtle things that are often the most unconditional and purest of hope, purest of motivation, purest of love and fulfillment are the little subtle things that happen in each every single day that passes by. You could be upset, you could be going to work, people are looking and maybe getting a bit, I'll use the terminology of blackpilled, for example, right? People are looking at in the streets of Ireland tonight and going, that some folk are calling out the Irish people for having enough and calling them criminals, but yet defended what BLM done in America. But all that aside, I dare say you're on a bus or a train, in one way or another, you're going to come across people, you're going to come across families happy, you're going to see children, little kids, babies born into the world. The world isn't stopping, it's continuing to go around. There is a continued progress. The cycle isn't ending, and our people producing, and our people being one, and our people enjoying life, and our people enjoying friendships and family. People overlook these things, but see, these things are what absolutely binds us. They make up our homes, they make up our communities, they make up our schools. These
Absolutely.
things and you can even take this back. I swear to God, people might go, "You're havering now." I'm no. Everything about your nostalgic way of life is either when a young person's born in the family, or when you're young and you go and see like your granny and granddad, all these simple things, and you're seeing this played out right now in front of your very eyes. Despite everything that's happening in the world, people are still choosing to live. People are still choosing to live. People are still choosing to have families. People are still choosing to to follow Jesus Christ. People are still choosing to stand up and call out the bullshit that's happening within their country. People are still choosing to not bend the knee. All these little things should fill you with absolute joy, should fill you with absolute hope, should fill you with absolute motivation to say, do you know what? I can do it as well. I can go and enjoy my life. I can go and have children. I can go and participate in these things. I can go and speak my mind. Don't be a prisoner. Don't fall into the trap. Take hope from the little subtle things you see in the street.
Yeah, absolutely. I get it. We're rarely, if ever, in disagreement, you and I. So I am not in disagreement with anything you say because I see all these things myself. And as you say, pleasure can come in the smallest spoonful, and that's usually the sweetest. And that begins by simple things like saying hello to your neighbours, asking how they are, etc., etc. All these tiny, tiny things that most of us do anyway shouldn't be overlooked nor ignored, but they should be amplified and encouraged in other people who perhaps don't use these things at the moment, because that's their salvation. That is where salvation for us lies, in that community. And it will grow. I'm as confident as you. I don't see how we could possibly be defeated here. I just don't see it. It can look that way if you're not too careful, but that isn't the reality. The reality is there is just no way God can be defeated. Just no way. And as we're on God's side, at least I firmly believe that we are, how can we lose? That doesn't mean to say, of course, Scots, that we should not try. We need to continually try and put effort into what we do. You can't just sit, this idea that you sit back and God does it all. Well, I don't think that's right either. I think what we need to do is we have to take responsibility for ourselves and do as much as we can, no matter how little that might be, so that it has a knock-on effect to other folk.
No, I completely agree. I mean, as I said earlier on, and I think you kind of touched on it as well about people that remain silent. Even remain silent is still complying to the worldly agenda. You conforming to worldly measures isn't doing anything. Continuing to say things how they are and applying yourself and saying what you're saying and conducting yourself within any walk of life, not bending a knee, not trying to find ways to be smart with words. That's you still showing an act of cowardice. You just go out and as I says, putting yourself on plate is all you need to do. Now, I'm not saying you need to go out into the street and start screaming things from the top of your lungs, but what I am saying, as an example of what I have did in many other people, is having a conversation with people in society. People aren't going to agree on football teams in this country. That's a given. People aren't going to agree on what colour of political party you agree on in this country. There is many things before you even get to the question of Jesus and God. But one thing that you shouldn't be doing is if you turn and say, right, I'm green, you're blue, I support Liberal Democrats, you support the SNP, you shouldn't, in the same sentence, be discouraged for turning and saying, I believe in Jesus Christ, what about you? If that person turns and says, religion's not for me, I don't really talk about it, that's fine. But if they ask you at the exact same though, you shouldn't turn and say, me neither. No, you should be turning and saying, I love God. I'm a God-fearing individual, but equally love God all the same. And people might ask you a question about it, But it's having that confidence and that accountability on yourself to actually do that. That's where
Yeah,
that comes into that.
yeah, absolutely. And I think you would agree that even if you don't say it in a forthright manner, people do pick up on the fact that this is your position, even if you're slightly obtuse about it all. I tend not always to just to blurt the thing straightforwardly out, but I like to consider the fact that when I do speak on such matters, that people can hear that there is a basic Christianity underneath what I'm saying, and a basic acceptance of a higher being in existence. I like to think that's the way it is.
Yeah, I'll use some names, folks, right? Because a lot of people think that the things that they've done, because I think a large part for people's attitude is it doesn't matter. I'm already at the gates of hell anyway. I've lived a bad life, blah blah blah. And I think that people use the wrongdoings are probably the misbehaviours. We're going, well, I've done this, so I can't change now because nothing matters. It does matter, and we just have to look at some folk within the Bible, and I'll use some examples, right? Samson, Samson was, a sexually immoral person, repented, sacrificed his life to God. Samson's very well spoken of in the Bible. Noah, an alcoholic, but Noah's one of the most influential people of the Bible, built the ark. Moses, Moses killed somebody, but yet God used Moses as the vessel to lead people out of Egypt. Jonah
Hmm?
was another one. Solomon, one of the most intelligent and wisest people throughout the Bible literature. David also killed a man for a woman, but yet God still chose David to defeat Goliath. And Peter denied Jesus, but yet Peter, the church was built upon. So the goodness and the grace within God is like the goodness and grace within your birth parents, your mum and your dad. You're their child. You will make mistakes. You will do wrongdoings, but they love you. And as long as you change and turn and say, "No, do you know what? I'm just clean slate. I'm going to do this. I'm going to conduct myself properly." Your mum and dad will love you and be grateful for that. It's the same with God. It's as simple as that.
Yeah,
Whatever you've done, it's put away. It's not spoke about again. They might not forget, but it's not spoke about again, which means it doesn't get held there you, and it's never going to get brought up as long as you continue to be on that path and continue to seek to do what's right. And that's all it is. It's a relationship. It's near the way that you would treat your own kids. It's just this is what you're meant to do.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right. Again, you're absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Well, my friend, believe it or not, we're getting close to 2 hours here.
No, really? John, do you know, I swear, I don't think I've ever done a stream with you where I went, that feels like it's took a while to get through. It's honestly, I've done a number of streams and I've enjoyed every one of them, and some I feel like, oh, I've been sitting on here a while. I could agree with that, but every time I chat to you, time goes like that. Maybe that's just me. I'm an absolute chatterbox, so I apologise to the chat if I've chatted the ears right off here. If I've
Oh, don't
bored
be
you,
silly.
you fed up.
Don't be silly. You come on for conversation, and conversation is something that no matter how many are taking part in, learn from. That's the whole point. You learn, you enjoy, you grow a bond between the person you're speaking to and the person who's listening, etc., etc. These are all important human activities, and that's just one of these things that Some people naturally enjoy, like myself, and you are another one who naturally enjoy conversation. I've always enjoyed conversation, uh, but it's not always conversation that you get. Sometimes you have to go looking for it, and we have found it. That's one of the great things about YouTube. You can find people here that you can grow fond with and enjoy conversations with for various different reasons, and you just happen to be one of them. For me, anyway. So yeah, it's always good. But like yourself, I look at the clock and say, "Good God, where did time go?"
Yeah,
And
I appreciate that, John. Thanks very much.
it's just the way it is. And I think we're quite fortunate on this side of the fence. There's quite a few of us who are like that. And that's what makes it a joy to speak. For me, anyway, that's what makes it a joy to speak because we have really great listeners and great people who contribute so much to the conversation. And we all learn. I mean, I always learn something, uh, which again is part of the value of conversation in itself. And it's not about uh, ego either, which is another great thing. There is no ego at work here. At least I don't feel it. So anyway,
No,
are you still doing your own streams, by the way?
well, as I said earlier on, I will get back to them. It's just because I've been so busy, I just don't want folk to tune in this Sunday and it's it's only about 50-60% of what I've recently put into the streams. See, when I do a stream, it's 100% right. I've looked at this, I've looked at that, and or me and DJ's kind of we're going to wing this, but we've got a rough idea because really no too much has happened. I want to put 100% into the streams, and that's why because I've been as busy. I've not done them. I don't want to kind of like have people come along and watch a Sunday stream where potentially like Ragnar, he takes a lot of time into his Sunday streams now, where they could maybe watch an extra half an hour or an hour a Ragnar stream instead of watching Scots Armour, who might only put 50% into it because he's been busy. So the next time I do a stream, I'll let people know perhaps a week or 2 weeks in advance. I am in the process of talking with DJ and Clive about doing one. We're just trying to get a date sorted out, and when we do, we will let everyone know.
Sure. I've got a request here from Streaky. He wants your thoughts on the right wing rising in Argentina and Holland. You want to give that a little consideration?
Well, again, I don't believe the politics works, but what I do think that this more than suggests is that people are fed up with liberal woke bullshit. Pardon the language, John. I think this
Yeah.
shows that people are sitting fed up with high levels of unwanted immigration. People are fed up with high levels of inflation throughout the country. People are sick and tired of schools being infiltrated with perverts and people that can't even identify and assign themselves to the correct toilet. So I think collectively for these countries, it's a good indicator that people have had are sick and tired of being told you've got to be polite and you've got to be kind and you've got to um, bend the knee to things that are indifferent and alien from your, and more importantly, your ancestors' ideals and values. Because whether it's Holland, whether it's Argentina, they're two large Christian countries and they're sick and tired and they just want, you know what, we want to go back to ways of old. And I'm actually glad to see, that there is a change happening. People are waking up and long may it continue. And glory to Jesus Christ.
Logos is rising, my friend. Logos is rising. Okay, doke. Thanks for that. I'm sure Streaky will appreciate that. So, I'm going to bring on the outro music now, as we have done 2 hours and I'm beginning to flag a little bit. So, have you got any last words to say, my friend?
Well, first and foremost, John, thank you very much for having me on. I've really enjoyed myself tonight. It's been a pleasure, and it's been overdue. And I'll hopefully have you on my channel sometime soon. For everyone in the chat that's came along and listened and engaged, thank you very much for your time. It's kindly appreciated. I wish each and every one of you all the best. Hopefully, you have a lovely weekend, and all glory and power to Jesus Christ. And that will do me.
Very good. Excellent. I'll just slip you out of the stream, and I'll speak to you very shortly when the music's finished, my friend. So there you go. A nice conversation, as always, with Scots Armour. It always is, of course. And please go and have a listen to the paper file that I've put up. And as I say, there is one of me speaking, very, very short. So have a listen to these two on the channel. I don't know when I'll be back. I've got therapy tomorrow, and it's unlikely that I'll be doing it tomorrow night. But I will be back soon, so don't despair. I will be back at some point. But until I'm back, I will say, as I always say, adios, au revoir, cheerio, and until we speak again, bye for now. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. If you get any decent weather, then go inside and enjoy it. Otherwise, take care of yourself, folks, and thanks for all of you for being here. Always appreciated. And thank you for whoever it was that bought a couple of coffees. That's great. Speak soon. Enjoy the music.
Silently the snow falls, paints a winter scene, swiftly spreads the dark rim, hides a fading autumn green. Moonbeams brush the dark wood, conjure friendships dear to me. Lightly now the breeze flows, disturbing more than just the leaves. But life's much more than we can know. We are one small glow in the eternal flow. Patiently the love grows, lifts the weary heart. Gently now she holds me, melts two worlds once apart. Moonbeams brush the dark wood, usher dreams of you and me. Softly then the breeze blows, disturbing more than just the trees.
All together now.
But love's much more
So much more
than we can know.
than we could ever possibly know.
We are one small globe
But a very important one.
in the eternal flow. Melodies of long ago, songs of innocence, harmonies to soothe the soul, have some consequence. Moonbeams brush the dark wood, awakening joys of you and me. Silently the snow falls, bringing winter symphony.
All together now.
But we're much more
So much more
than we can know.
than we can ever possibly know.
We are one small globe
But an important one.
in the eternal flow. But life's much more than we can know. We are one small globe in the eternal flow.
So take care, folks, and I'll speak to you all real soon. Bye for now.